the science that we are doing can also help people live much bigger life. Now, I'm a testament for it. I'm now much sharper than I was 20 years ago. I work much harder than I did 30 years ago. And I think it's only going to get better. That I'm 57 now, and I work at least 100 hours a week, and I love it. Because I do stuff that is very, very interesting for me. I would love for everybody else to discover their own version of interesting life. That list is so exciting. I can't tell you how exciting that is. That vision is so much interesting. I can't tell how exciting that is.
Hi, I'm Liz Parrish, and this is my co-host, Saravanan, and we are podcast Buying Time, where every week we're going to bring you a new topic. And this week, episode 2, is all about getting to know Saravanan and understanding what he does in his life to help you buy time. So here we go.
Hi, Liz. It's a pleasure doing this podcast with you.
Who are you? I mean, I even just recently met you, and we were just like so connected on all of the things we want to do. Who are you?
Well, this is like who's John Galt kind of a question. Let's see what I can look at it. Liz, I'm just an engineer. I did civil engineering, one of the most boring areas of engineering, where the last innovation ever done was, it predates me, somewhere in the 1940s or so. So I was brain dead literally, and I ran a business in engineering for about like 20 plus years. I ran a consulting company. Because this is so brain dead, and for me, I require a lot of, I don't know, some people get their kicks out of, surfing. Some people get their kicks out of hiking. Some people get their kicks out of, maybe cooking. I get my kicks out of trying to understand the world around me. So eventually, that quest of trying to understand the world around me ended up with trying to understand who am I. I was much younger, right? In my early 20s or so. Then I thought, with a typical engineering mind at the brain, I thought, okay, I got to understand what this mission is. So let's just go and find out how all of these things work. So I started reading a little bit about psychology, started with Freud and Jung and all that. All that didn't make any sense. Then that is a time a lot of things about neuroscience was coming out, and neuroscience made so much of sense for my engineering brain. I was able to understand how my brain worked, and then to understand how my brain worked, I had to understand how my body worked. So I started reading a little bit about medicine. Then I had to understand how my interaction with other people works. So I started reading a little bit about social biology or evolutionary biology. Then with some reading that I was doing on fundamental physics and mathematics and all that kind of stuff, everything got mashed up. I'm also used to be a hobby programmer. So all of that put together, someday about 5 years ago, when I wanted to start something, ended up stumbling into healthcare. Who am I? I don't know, Liz. Do we even want to know, Liz? Do we even want to know who we are?
Well, I don't know, because I mean, I think that you are.
And are we just...
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you. Please go ahead. I'm just talking whatever comes to my mind.
Please keep talking. I mean, I think that's the whole point of what it is to be human. I think very few people stay one thing. I don't think that we're to be defined. So please, I mean, you are a curious person. You're intelligent and you're curious, and that's what I'm getting from it. But please go on.
And I am ADHD. So yeah, nobody gave me a formal diagnosis. This is something that I eventually figured out. So I'm many things at the same time. Probably nothing at the end of it, but it's okay. It's not about, you're not in the age where you have to create a self-identity for yourself. I'm at an age where I'm just enjoying being perennially distracted with all things that appear beautiful. And if you're an ADHD, you know that everything that you touch is suddenly beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing. It's the most, it it calls all your attention. So that's uh, that's what is happening to me at this point in time. Yeah, it's what has happened to me all through my life.
Yeah, that is the beauty of ADHD. I'm certain I have it too. I think that I have read that a lot of CEOs and people in different areas of running businesses have it, and it's actually a superpower. I love that you say that when you touch something, it suddenly becomes beautiful. And I don't think that the rest of the world knows that. They sometimes I feel like there is a disconnect. Often we look at something like attention deficit and or really what is massive curiosity in our cases, and people look at it as a negative thing, overambitious or very distracted or trying to learn too many different things in our lives. But it's like a superpower. I mean, I want to know at least a little bit of everything. I would desire to know everything about everything, but the things keep moving and different things keep coming in front of our faces. And it really makes us curious and want to know more about that and dive really deep. So I'm really happy to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, there is something that I want to tell you about ADHD, right? Typically, if you have ADHD and if you say that you have one, I'm surprised that of all the people in the conference that are there, I went and found somebody who thinks she's an ADHD. I have in the organization that I head, the talent acquisition head also thinks that she's an ADHD. A dear friend of mine, I don't know, these days it's become a joke, inside joke, that if both of us like a candidate, we know for sure that candidate is ADHD. And then, when I interview some candidate and then I go back and tell her, you know what, this is so good, I connect her so well. Yeah, we got another ADHD into the team and we're like, high five. See,
Well, you can be sure that we'll all know a little bit about a lot of things. And that's actually really helpful. That's really the unicorn, right? That's what everyone wants to become, is someone who knows a lot about a lot of things. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't control all the things that we become fascinated with, but all things in the world seem to have some sort of intertwined interest in them, whether you're gardening or you're painting or you're doing something in biology or mathematics. There's this beautiful tie-in. It's interesting how it all comes together. Now we know a little bit about your psych. What do you do? What do you do besides sit with me every week for an hour?
Okay, so I run a company called Amura, and we are currently in the phase where we are helping people to reverse a lot of chronic health conditions which do not have a solution using under the standard care. All that we do is evidence-based, strictly evidence-based, and the programs are run by doctors. So we bring in fresh minds. We train them in our own way of approaching, looking at health. We've been doing this for the last 5 years. We've been getting excellent results. That's what we do. And what I also know is that whatever science that we're using today to help people beat their chronic health conditions can also be used for extending the number of years people have on the planet. Today, I believe that whatever we do can give additional 5 to 10 years time, at least for the people who go through the program. It's like somebody comes in, works with us for about 3 to 6 months time, and eventually we give them a health tweak, plus we give them a lot of knowledge. With that, they can very easily buy another 10 years of time on the planet. And we hope that by the time this tenure is spent, new science will come along, which will give them another 10 years, which will help them to buy another 5 years, another 10 years, and I think it will go on. This is a very common belief in the anti-aging community. So 2 things I told you. One is that we are talking about helping people reverse their chronic health conditions. We've been doing that for the last 5 years. And second is that the same science that is used for helping people reverse a chronic health condition can also be used for helping them live much longer. We have a pilot program on this super longevity, and that's been running for the last about a year's time. And the third thing, which probably we'll take it at the end of this year and beginning next year, It's the same science that is used for helping people much longer. Can also be used to help people live a much bigger life. So what it means is that when you work on the body, your longevity or lifespan expands. When you work on the brain, the life expands. Brain is just part of the body. So whatever science that you use to help the body get better, obviously has to help the brain get better. So that is something that we'll start working. And our mission is to ensure that whatever practice that we started reaches maximum number of people. So everything that I'm talking about is something that we're doing today. It's not something that we're going to do tomorrow. It's not a science that we're waiting for it to come. There are no breakthroughs necessary. There is no knowledge that is expected to come. These are all what we're doing today. The stuff that we are unable to do today is to make sure that it's like about we reached thousands of people, but then that's not even a drop in the ocean of 8 billion people on the planet. This knowledge, we wanted to reach as many number of people as possible. That's a mission. And I think that is what is going to keep it interesting for next, few more years, few more decades to come.
That's amazing. It reminds me, like when you said that you have doctors come on and you train them. I'm thinking of the US system and how doctors here are trained to prescribe certain pills for certain symptoms of disease. And not many of them know about diet, exercise, or any of the newer advances in medicines that are prescribable, but that actually help people live longer and healthier lives. Did you see that as a barrier to entry? I mean, how are doctors trained in India? Is it different, or are you having to give them absolutely fundamental training to help patients?
It's not different. It's just the same. But it's not a hurdle, it's an opportunity. So as a startup, your job is to find a niche that is existing there. Find a market niche that is not filled and then to go and fill. This is a market niche that we are filling. What is the market niche that we are filling? Let's just zoom back a little bit. Everything in your body is built from something that you put in your mouth someday in the past. There's nothing else. Now, you're not like a plant where you pick up stuff from the air. It doesn't happen. Everything that you are, your nail, your hair, your skin, the internal organs, the brain with which you are thinking, everything is built from something that you put in your mouth someday. And a digestive system takes whatever you put in, breaks it apart, and whatever is useful, the building blocks that are useful, it takes it and uses the circulatory system to send it to different parts of the body, where the body uses them as building blocks and builds itself. Those building blocks are special classes of chemicals. We call them nutrients. But it's funny. I don't understand. I can't wrap my head around it, right? As a civil engineer who's done building construction, the first thing that we read about is strength of materials. You understand the material before you think about anything else. How does medicine not study about nutrition? I think the doctors, for the first 3 years, they should read nothing other than nutrition. But then all my doctor friends tell me, my co-founder is a doctor. He's the one who manages the entire medical team. They all tell me that they get less than about 10 hours of training in 6 years they spend in med school. I don't understand how that is. For about 15 years, I was going around telling my doctor friends that, hey, these are all things that make a lot of sense. Nobody seemed to be taking it seriously. I'll tell you why they're not taking it seriously. It's not their fault. I don't think they have vested interest not to take it seriously. I don't think, like a lot of people say that, doctors don't want to take it seriously. They want you to get sick and then, so they can treat you, make money. I think that's bullshit. All my friends are high integrity people. And even if you don't want to buy that story, in a world where there are about 99 people who want to cheat everybody else, there is one person who doesn't want to cheat other people. That one person will make all the money that 99 people are missing out, right? So there is always an incentive in a world where everybody is a thief. There is an incentive for somebody who says, hey, I'm honest. So that's basic game theory. So that all doctors are doing the wrong thing because they have vested interest. I think that just sloppy thinking. I think what is happening is doctors, right from the time they enter the med school and they're 6 years, then they start building their practice. It takes about 10 to 15 years time for them to build a practice of some consequence. So for about 15, 20 years time, they have been practicing one particular type of medicine. They create an intuition for that particular type of medicine. Now, you're from US. So let's say I look at a table and then I say that this table is 2 feet by 4 feet or 3 feet by 4 feet. Your mind immediately understands what that number is, what that, it perceives that perception. But if I tell you, you know what, this table is 60 centimeter by 120 centimeter, 1.2 meter, that's not something that you're going to resonate with. You'll have to convert it back to feet and then see. So that is the intuition, right? I think once intuition takes many years for it to form, and once you form the intuition, you will have to hold on to it. If you have to form an alternative intuition, it takes so many more years to erase this one and form a new one. And that is very difficult. It is very time consuming. See, all successful doctors are successful because they have fantastic intuition. We often hear that, right? That excellent doctors are more like artists than scientists. So what are we talking about? We're talking about excellent doctors have excellent intuition. Now, if you have got excellent intuition and then you're very successful because of it, you're making a lot of money for it. And then to form an alternative intuition is going to take so much more time. And in medicine, there is also another thing, right? Almost every now and then somebody will come and say, you eat this will be all right. You eat that will be all right. This medicine happens, that medicine happens. I have doctor friends, how many times they have been given breakthrough drugs which turn out to be horrible. So they have had it very tough. Very, very often they have false promises that don't live up to their expectation. And all through med school, subsequently, nobody ever told you that diet and nutrition can have a significant effect. So there is no good reason for them to take it seriously, particularly when it comes from somebody like me who's got no medical background. Or on YouTube, right? Or on some book that is written for the lay press. I think that's the reason why the doctors are not changing. I try to tell this. Obviously, I'm not an authority figure. At least before I started Amura, I was not an authority figure. No, none of my friends took it seriously. And this has been going on for many years. In 2008, I reversed my diabetes. Then I say, hey, nobody wants to take it seriously. I'm an entrepreneur. Do I have to wait for an invitation for some of this, for me to start this into a business? I did this.
So wait, this is how you got started. You're alluding to some insight here of why you actually got into there. So finish what you were saying, and then I want to know why you started on this path.
I still have to answer the question that you asked me. Is the training of the doctors the same? It's the same in the US. I think doctors who do allopathy practice, that's evidence-based medical practice, all over the world, they're just the same. I'm not saying it as a bad thing. It's just that the template is the same template. So when we started out, we wanted to get some senior doctors and get them to come and work with us and all that. My co-founder was 25, 26 when he started out. But we have found a couple of problems with senior doctors. Problem number one is that they had an intuition and they had to put the bag down. And that was turning out to be very difficult for us. They were taking wrong decisions, even without knowing that they were making a mistake. Number one. Number two is all of them have already got practices that they have built over a period of 20, 30 years time. And most of them, the kind of people that we identified had flourishing practices. They had very little time to spend on something new. And then if you had to identify somebody who isn't having a practice, what are you going to do with that person? There is something obviously inherently not working with them. Over a period of time, we discovered that you could take fresh doctors who are yet to form an intuition, who are yet to go into one particular specialty, and teach them a new way of treating people, new way of diagnosing and treating people. That turned out to be very successful. There is also another curse of medicine that everybody wants to specialize. The reason everybody wants to specialize is not that specialty is actually so difficult. If you go talk to a diabetologist, I think they have about 6 or 7 generic drugs. If you go talk to a cardiologist, similarly, they have a small number of drugs, molecules that they keep cycling. So if you're a diabetologist, and I got like about 30 years of experience on this, and then I know some diabetologists here who see like about 150 consultations in a day. And if you're going to be writing 150 prescriptions in a day, and you got like what, 5,000 prescriptions you have written, and then you cycle the same 6, 7 drugs all the time in different combinations, you don't need a specialty for that. But specialization in medicine is not so much necessary as to understand the complexity of medicine. It is necessary for you to identify yourself with a niche. It's a niche branding requirement. You brand yourself into a niche. Once somebody becomes a specialist, they end up going deeper and deeper in that particular space, and at the cost of everything else. Nutrition doesn't work like that. Your body doesn't work like that. It's not as if, there are some diseases you will get only on the left ear and you won't get it in your right ear, right? When body breaks down, it breaks down everywhere. It might just, the symptoms on the surface might look like, I have a hair fall. But then the hair fall could have a problem with, you have iron deficiency. And the iron deficiency could be because your digestion isn't working well. Your digestion isn't working well because you aren't producing enough digestive enzymes. You aren't producing enough digestive enzyme because you're not having zinc. You're not having zinc. Why? You keep on asking this question. At the end of it, because your digestive enzyme is not producing well, maybe you have brain fog. Maybe you have, you put on weight because your iron is not there. There are so many things that break down when you keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper, when you find out the root cause, you discover that particular root cause has got multiple expressions. Conventional medicine, what did I say? I have a hair, you go to a trachologist. You put on weight, you go to a medical bariatric doctor or bariatric surgeon. And then you've been putting on weight for a long time because of that you got diabetes, you go to a diabetologist. Or, you got a heart attack because you didn't control any of this, you go to a cardiologist, right? It looks at the symptom at the top. And at the top, it all looks like different things. But you need to come down to the root cause. When you come down to the root cause, many of these things collapse into a same thing. For doing that kind of thinking, you need somebody who isn't spoiled by the specialist mentality. We find that young doctors are still fresh, they are still curious, they are still looking for, they're still moldable, and they're still bright. So there's a lot of advantages in working with very young doctors. So we said, hey, they aren't getting training, so we're going to take these young doctors and train them in a new way of thinking. And that is what we have done. And we're doing pretty well with that.
How could we get older doctors, because kind of that's our mindset, is to help people mold and live longer or maybe unmold, get out of the mold. Like maybe would evidence, them just having undisputable evidence turn them towards it? I mean, pretty soon people will demand that from their doctors. They'll stop going to see those doctors.
Liz, I have a little cynical view on this. What I have come to believe is that today, with the current set of intuitions, doctors are commercially very successful. Their career is very successful. They're flourishing. They don't have any compulsion to think, to form a new intuition. But if you want that to be done by the vast majority of the people, I think it will happen only when their livelihood is threatened. Not before that. If they feel that this becomes a commercial compulsion, they must do it, they will learn. They're not going to learn before that. And I don't think that there is anything wrong about it. All decisions that I take those decisions. I'm compelled to spend about 10 hours of my life only if that is going to feed me. Otherwise, I'm not going to do it. I don't see why doctors should be any different from that. But something happened quite unexpectedly. Now with GPT and artificial intelligence that is making a tremendous breakthrough every day, something is going to drastically change in medicine. I don't even know what it is. So I like to think that I'm very clued in on to technology. I like to think that I'm able to predict how the future is going to roll out and all that. But this that is happening with GPT, it's like mind-boggling. I don't know how medicine is going to adapt to that. Because all that we're practicing, now GPT can do that. Maybe in a few days' time, few months' time, GPT will be able to do it. Probably we will get it started. See, many of the stuff that we're doing, the protocol is closed. In the sense that we haven't open sourced it. It's not widely available. It's available only in some places. So we might bring it to AI. If not, maybe somebody else will bring it. But it's just a matter of few months' time, maybe another quarter. You have something so effective, and you go and chat with the AI will give you an answer. And the treatment is just tweaking your diet a little bit and food supplements. That'll work better than what your doctor tells you to do. I don't know what the future is going to look like. It's scary even for me.
You alluded to that a personal issue had brought you to this space. Can you elaborate on that?
Men in my father's side typically keep dying very young of heart attack. My father died when he was 40, 41, heart attack. His father died when he was 40. I lost a few of my cousins quite young. I should have, with that kind of a risk, definitely I have it. So I sort of been, all through my life, been a little careful about what I was eating and kept my weight very low. My BMI has always been about 23, 24. I was very mindful of what I was eating, all that. But then about 20 years ago, 21 years ago from now, when I did my first ever blood test, my triglycerides came out to be like 800 plus. It is literally off the chart. The lab came out and said that, your triglyceride is so good, so high, we can't measure it. You need to do a special test to measure it. Back then, we didn't know what triglyceride was. I went back to internet 2002. I looked for what triglyceride is, and there was very little understanding of what it was. And whatever I could find, the website said, it's not something that you need to be worried about. You should only be worried about LDL cholesterol. And then I went to a doctor, identified somebody who's best in the city. And the doctor put me on fenofibrates and statins. Both my triglyceride and LDL came down in about 1.5 months' time. I was very happy I went ahead. What I didn't know then, I know now very well, that triglyceride is beginning of something called fuel surplus, right? Your body has got too much of fuel in it, and the fuel in the form of triglyceride is spilling over into the blood. And if you don't do anything about it over a period of time, the next other type of fuel in the body, which is glucose, will also start spilling into the blood, and that is what is diabetes. So this is how the disease progresses. I didn't know it back then. Nobody knew about it. So in 2007, in one of my regular blood tests that I was doing, I was diagnosed as diabetic. My fasting blood sugar was 150 and my postprandial was 250. I didn't even know what diabetes is. My wife was much more clued in to these things, and she was devastated. I say, hey, why is she so worried about it? But something else hit me very hard. What happened is, around about that time, we got our son's blood test done, and he was 10 years old. His triglyceride came out to be 400. And we went to the same doctor. We were shocked. We went to the same doctor, and the same doctor said, oh, no, we're going to put this kid on statins. Fortunately, by then, we were already reading enough medical books. We knew that statins would interfere with the developing brain. So we didn't want to put him on statins. We were also reading a lot of books on, Hertog is one of them. I read this book about how hormones can be used to make you healthy. Then there are a lot of other doctors from all around the world. They were thinking out of the box and finding solutions, offering solutions that other doctors missed. So between me and my wife, our thought process was somebody somewhere in the world should have an answer for our son. This is very similar to what he did. When you found that your son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. He was 9, you told me, and our son was 10. So I started attending medical conferences, exactly what he did, right? You went to UK and then you discovered gene therapies. My first conference was in Singapore. It was a conference organized by American Association for Anti-Aging Medicine Practitioners, A4M. A4M was inaugurating the Singapore chapter. And Singapore is just a hop away from where I am. So went there, dragged along one of my doctor friends. So I was the only non-doctor in the conference, and me and my friends were only 2 Indians in the conference. So we listened to all of that, and I tried to speak to everybody who was there. I spoke to a bunch of people. Then finally, I found somebody from Germany who was doing a lot of forward thinking, and I found somebody from US who was off the chart brilliant. Then I came across someone from Australia. This is the most unassuming looking person that I could ever imagine. He was just walking around talking to people, and he was like so comfortable with himself. And I didn't know what to make out of him. Then when I sat through his presentation, he he was talking so much of sense. Then when I went and spoke to him, I told him that this is the condition. Can you help my son? He said, yeah, that's okay. One big deal. I said, hey, what is this guy talking about? He said, no, all that can be fixed. Then eventually, after the conference, I connected with him. We Skyped, and he said, "You know what, Saravanan? I stopped practicing medicine long time ago." He's a nutritionist. I stopped practicing long time ago, but I would help you out. He put our son onto a nutrition protocol, and he put me on a nutrition protocol. Mine was bonus. I went looking for a solution for my son. In about 2-3 months, both of us, I reversed my diabetes. Not completely. It came down to something like 110 blood sugar, 105, 110, and my son's triglyceride came down. And he said, hey, don't worry about it. That's all we can do. Just be with it. Forget. Then I went around talking about it to all my friends. I found it very fascinating. This gentleman who helped me reverse my diabetes, he had written a lot of books. Those books were written for doctors. So I just wanted to find out, what is this guy written about? So I bought all of them and started reading them. And they were very difficult for me to read because I have no background in biology. I hated the subject when I was in the college, when I was in the school. I was so happy that I didn't have to do biology or zoology when I went into college. But then now I had to get back into all of those stuff. So, but then it was a comic relief for me. Those books were a comic relief for me when I had nothing else to read, or when I was getting brain fried reading one of those subjects that I'm usually love to read. You keep reading about something that you like to read for about a week's time, and then you do intense reading, then you get your brain fried. You become so numb. You need some break. Sometimes you just shut it off and then go somewhere, and sometimes you can read something that is completely unrelated to you, and that sort of freshen up your thought process. So then I used to open these books, and then I say, hey, what are these words? So I've probably read these books like 20, 30, 40 times, and little by little got a bit understanding. Then, something else happened, Liz. But the next 2 years time, well, something else has been happening all along. There is something very unusual about the way that I think, or the way that something unusual about my performance. That has always been the case. So it's always very easy for me to deal with difficult problems. It's extremely difficult for me to work on problems that are considered to be very easy by everybody else. I didn't know why. How does it express? It expresses like this. I would start a new project, and I would chew out all the difficult parts, and I would do a very good job at that. The project would be 80% complete, and then I would lose interest. Finishing the balance 20% would take forever. Life doesn't work like that. You need to see everything to completion. You can't just keep running after shiny new things, and after the novelty is worn off, you can't just drop and go, right? That's a luxury. That luxury you can't have, unless otherwise you belong to the leisure class. This caused a lot of heartburn. I had so many projects that I started that I never finished, never had the interest to finish. I didn't know about all of this back then, right? But I knew that something was not right. I was trying to read what was not right. I was meeting a lot of psychiatrists. Somebody said, you got bipolar disorder, and then they put me on sodium valproate. It bloody sucked. It took the creativity out of it. It sort of put me in one, this for a few months I was on it. I just lost all the creative thinking during that period. Then I got out of it. Then somebody else said, maybe you got depression, you got dysthymia, and then they put me on SSRI. Now I know that ADHD, at the flavor that I have is norepinephrine, low norepinephrine, and somewhat low dopamine. You take somebody who's low on dopamine, and then you put the person on SSRI, it further depresses the dopamine. And I ended up getting all the adverse symptoms of people who get on SSRI. And I never got better, right? For some time, it looked like I was getting better, and then subsequently everything went downhill. I lost about 2 years of my life during this period. But then I discovered that books are available where they talk about stuff that the doctors are not aware of. And that there are doctors somewhere in the world who wrote those books. They are aware of something that the doctors that I'm meeting weren't aware of. So I got whatever book that I could get on Amazon and started reading about them. I discovered accidentally from a podcast that probably I had ADHD. That is something that I had never considered possible. ADHD is supposed to be attention deficit, right? The title says attention deficit. I'm not attention deficit. The problem that I have is that I end up working on something, pour my heart and soul into it, get into start working, and then you don't even realize that it's the day broke already, right? I only had problem with surplus attention. I never had problem with attention deficit. But then when this podcaster was talking about it, he was saying how this disease is poorly understood and how, if you have ADHD, what are your other mannerisms are. For example, he was saying that if you have ADHD, it's likely that your parietal lobe is extra sensitive. So you'll wear only soft clothes and you won't wear a watch and things. So many things that this guy was talking about, everything is determined. So even now, the Apple Watch that I'm wearing, I had to wear the one that is the softest, and I can't wear a linen. So I'm very sensitive parietal lobe, touch wise, right? It's very difficult for me to. I'm one of those people who are
It's
not
so
very.
funny because I don't have my Apple Watch on right now, but I just took it off a few minutes ago because it ran out of batteries. I have the soft strap on my Apple Watch.
Yeah, and it's so difficult for me to hug people. So this guy was talking about all this, and then hey, this guy is talking about me. Then I got all the books that I could get about ADHD. There were about 20 of them at that time. Then I made a 3-inch thick file saying what is ADHD, how do you diagnose it, what are different flavors of it, how you treat it, etc., etc. Went and met my psychiatrist and gave the book to her and said, you know what, I think I have ADHD. If you agree with what is there in this book, you treat me. This is the prescription you are supposed to write. So she was kind enough not to throw me out of the office, and she wrote the prescription, and I started picking up pieces of my life subsequently. But then this wrong treatment with SSRI also had some other adverse reaction. My hormones were in the toilet. Hormone levels are pretty bad. Then again, I started reading whatever I could on hormones. Back then, there were not many books available on hormones. Even now, also not many books are available on hormones. So there were a lot of websites on internet which were openly discussing about all of these things. So I spent about a year or two, learned quite a bit, came to a point where I could actually now start reading medical books that are written on hormones, got whatever books that I could find. I read 1, I read 2. By the time I finished 2, by the time I went into 3, I realized that all these books were talking about the same thing. Why all these books are talking about the same thing? There is only so much of science out there. So all of them can only talk about what science that exists. So it didn't make sense to read so many. There are only few, and then you read them, you know everything that is to be known in the narrow area that I'm talking about. Then I tried to convince some endocrinologists to put me on hormone replacement. So they laughed me out of the office. I said, hey, I was in my 30s. I said, my life, if I'm going to get cancer and die, I'm going to die. Till that, I'm going to live. So I was on it for about 8 years. Then just when we started Amura, I came off the HRT. And then, subsequently I ended up I got typhoid once. This is a pretty bad disease, right? So I said, hey, so much of bacterial load, what is going to happen to me? And then I had some books sitting in my Kindle I haven't read for a long time about microbiome. I started reading about microbiome. I learned so much list that I didn't know about it then. And then, I discovered something. When I was reading about microbiome, I discovered something. When I was young, I was a kid, maybe 3-4 years old or so. I had something, I don't remember what, and I was on an antibiotic. I was on penicillin injection for a few months. That probably destroyed my gut flora. That has been giving me the cyclic depressions that I have been suffering with, which these guys wrongly misconstrued as depression, put me on SSRI. The real problem that I had was I had gut issue, a minor gut issue, but this gut issue was depleting my cortisol because genetically I'm predisposed to have low cortisol. A lot of people in my family have low cortisol, and then you have gut issue that depletes the cortisol even further down. Once in a while, I would end up with depression that is unexplainable. So now what? I understand about fuel surplus and all the metabolic diseases that you get from that. I understand about brain because I had to read everything that is there before I understood that is a problem. Nobody told me that this is a problem. I should go read only that, right? So I had to boil the ocean before I could find out this is where you get this. With all of that put together, sometime 5 years ago, we thought, hey, you know what? So many new possibilities are available. And it's not as if the existing healthcare wants to do anything about it. They don't understand that these things are real. These things produce very measurable results. And patients are dying because these solutions are not available. Why am I just sitting here waiting for somebody to give me an invitation? This is an opportunity that could measure in trillions of dollars. And then we started this. Long story for a small question.
So basically, you're taking your company and you're teaching people how to change their life in which they can then do that themselves. They can actually take care of themselves and live a healthier, better life for a long period of time.
Exactly this. So this is something that we started 5 years ago. What we're doing now is that we are developing a lot of software tools that will help people to monitor their own health and give them guidance on what is to be, what they should do, what they should not do based on individual characteristics. We have taken our things to a different level now. Last time in the last podcast, we were saying about, more number of people, more crazy, more fun, right? So that is what is going to happen. Lot more people are going to be there on the planet.
Well, that leads me into one of the last questions for you. What is your role in super longevity? What do you think of it?
Okay.
What does it mean to you?
What does it mean to
First.
me? Okay, what does it mean to me personally? I'll tell you what. The first thing it means to me is that I think I lost about 20, 30 years of my life because of all this chaos. So I want another 30 years. Why not? Right? Okay. Why should you want it? Hey, what else do I have to ask? I have nothing else to ask. What do I have to ask? Do I have to ask for a car? It's such a small bar to cross. What else do you have to ask? Oh, you're going to ask for a happy life? Okay, I have it. Now what else? For a long time, I was reading all these books about how to find happiness. None of them made any sense. I don't know why. All these are very acclaimed books. I read many of them and listened to people who talk about happiness. None of it made any sense. They talked about monkey brain that keeps jumping from place to place without a control. Hey, that's a beauty of, you keep thinking about the daydreaming is a beauty of living. If you can't daydream, then what? So something didn't connect at all. Then I came across a 2-minute clip somewhere on Facebook from some philosopher. This guy said, why do you want to have a happy life if you can have an interesting life? That connected. I'm clear in my mind. That sort of, it said, hey, that's a life that I want. I'm clear in my mind that I want interesting life. I don't want happy life. I don't know what happiness means. To me, interesting life is happy life. Interesting things for different people, different things. And I also am an agnostic, meaning which, I have no reason to believe that there is a life beyond death. So the only thing that is available to me is to live an interesting life as long as you can. The other thing that I told you, the science that we are doing can also help people live much bigger life. Now, I'm a testament for it. I'm now much sharper than I was 20 years ago. I work much harder than I did 30 years ago. And I think it's only going to get better. Now is the time I need to tell the audience, like I said last time, that you are 52. Now is the time for me to tell the audience that I'm 57 now. And I work at least 100 hours a week. And I love it. Because I do stuff that is very, very interesting for me. I'm at a point in time where I don't have to do stuff that is not interesting for me. I would love for everybody else to discover their own version of interesting life. When we do, the world will be so much better than it is today. On the very functional level, very utilitarian level, all the existential problem that we suffer with, that we are scared about, pandemic that could come and hit us, our climate change that we are worried about, many of the problems that we're talking about, all these problems will just vanish if people discover that they have so much of additional time, and then they can pursue things that is interesting for them for next 5 years, 10 years. Then they can come and pursue another thing that is interesting for them for another 5, 20 years, and so on and so forth. And our world will become richer, both culturally and economically. The future will be so much better than what we can even imagine. What we are doing, the path that I have set forward, the path that I have started in with Amura, will contribute at least to a small part in creating a future like that for us. That list is so exciting. I can't tell you how exciting that is. That vision is so much interesting. I can't tell how exciting that is.
It's amazing. It's amazing to be part of building the future. It's like creating. So there's many things that you do in your life where you feel like you're just building the parts, like you're studying the paintbrush or you're studying the paint. But when you're working on future technology, you're actually painting the painting. You're not stuck in the parts. You're actually building and expanding for the future. And creating is just such a wonderful thing to do with our time.
Liz, how can anything be more interesting than that? Now, what do you need to do? Just need to take the smartest people in the planet, the most experienced, the wisest people in the planet, give them hope that they have another 20, 30 years time where they can now start doing stuff that they really enjoy doing, and then give them additional, I don't know, health, additional mind space, additional cognitive capabilities that they can do things that they haven't been able to do till now. Amazingly addictive dream. Even if a small fraction of it comes true, I think I'll be drunk on this for decades to come. Yeah.
Absolutely. I wonder how many people that society sees as invaluable, but if they actually had the time, the luxury to study something new, not live day to day and hand to mouth, how productive they would be as well. It makes you wonder. I mean, you have so much man and woman power at that point because we have these lives of which we've acquired all of this knowledge and information. And some people are literally just caterpillars waiting to bloom into who they could be and what value they could have for the rest of the world. It's so exciting to me.
Sometimes when I get into these thoughts, it becomes very difficult to speak because the moment you start thinking about them, the dream just takes over. Yeah, Liz. So that is why I think super longevity is so exciting, because I think it will create a future that is so beautiful.
With that, I hear music coming in. Do you hear the music?
Yeah.
Is that? I think that's summing it up for us. I think that music tells us to now go and imagine and dream and think about that future and leave our viewers with it so they can think about what the future might look like, and not the dystopian future that Hollywood sells us or that politicians might be pushing, but the real trajectory of science and technology and innovation. If we decide to be a highly driven society towards technology, towards the betterment of humans, the world just naturally will become a better place. And living more years in it sounds amazing.
Liz, I want to, when you contrast the negativity and positivity and all that, right? There is so much of negativity in the news, and we are talking about something very positive. There is a particular axis where this disparity comes from. Not many people are aware of this. Is that when we are all younger, we are much more attuned to focusing on the negativities, right? Not that we are negative people, but things that are negative are much more apparent to us. And that is why younger people are very angry about the injustice in society, and then they need to do something about it. But then as people are growing older, when you get into 50s and 60s, now this is science, this is not some anecdote. When you get into 50s and 60s, you sort of tune out all the negativity in your environment. And then you focus on all the positivities. Say whenever there is negativity, you just don't even think about it. You focus on all the positivities, right? So I also think that when this transformation of super longevity happens, the world will invariably become more positive. And the people who've been making money out of selling negative stuff, it could be our media, it could be our politicians. I think a new breed will come, which will create wealth by selling positivity, and there could be some balance at last.
Oh, I'm super hopeful for that. I've always said the world is actually ready for good news now. Some of the things that I see on the TV and politicians, especially in the United States, fighting, and I think they just are not qualified to be in their position.
Very true. And please be assured that politicians all over the world are just the same. They're not different. It's not just in the United States. I'm sure we see it everywhere. On the other hand, I would also tell you this. If the politicians are not fighting, then we are probably living in a dictatorship. So we are so happy that our politicians are fighting with each other. Yeah.
Depends on what they're fighting about.
What they are fighting for. That is a problem. I know.
What they're fighting about. I would love to see them fighting for affordable and proper health care and affordable and proper nutrition. That was something that you brought up, in the United States when the first American Dietary Association got together and told people what they should be eating. That's when obesity takes off. Basically, bread and grains and sugar is supposed to be most of your diet, and then proteins very little at the top. And, obesity takes off, and corn syrup hits our food. And it literally shifts the weight of the nation within just 2 to 3 years.
There's a Dr. Fetke, if you remember his name correctly, from Australia, did some work. He and his wife did some work to find out where all this stuff came from. Why did human beings go away from their natural preference for food, right? India has always been an agrarian society, and our food was for many thousands of years grain-based. But the rest of the world was not. Particularly the Western population was largely based on animal protein, except for about last 100 plus years. Suddenly they switched to eating vegetable oils and a lot of bread, and they started leaving out animal products and all that. So this, Dr. Fetke and his wife went on trying to find out where all this came from. To their utter surprise, they find that all of this was started by a religious group in Australia who thought, there was a nun in the religious group who was a leader there. She thought about in the turn of last century that eating meat would increase people's libido. And if they had too much of libido, then they will not submit themselves to the Lord. So they will not be religious. So to make sure that people are religious, they should not eat meat, and started this veganism movement. And then this part of that, and the man who made the thoughts, right? Not a crazy lunatic. This guy has made statements like, young boys should eat cornflakes, otherwise they'll masturbate too much. These are nutcases. They but intelligently went on sponsoring nutrition associations all over the world and started influencing the nutrition policy around the world. They've been doing that for the last 100 plus years. Triples are alive even today. Lot of crappy nutrition advice that you get from many governments is the product of the inertia of how things were started many, many years ago. I think with artificial intelligence and the software tools and people who are educated enough to understand what is happening to them, and if you have tools that will tell them what is good for them and how to identify what is not good for them, another 5 years, 10 years, I think all of this can be demolished. 150 years of work or 100 plus years of work that these guys have done, and which has destroyed the public health, we can demolish it in another 5 to 10 years' time. It's just getting started.
I should preface that with I am a vegetarian, but I'm not a vegetarian for health purposes. I just don't like thinking that anything has to die for me to eat. But I should tell you that.
Okay, I personally do not have any preference. I do not want to have any political opinion. And for me, it's just the data works, right? So for somebody, if it's good for them and they're healthy, doing that, it's okay with them. But you don't...
That's kind of how it happened to me. I was in my 20s and somebody challenged me to do it, and I did it, and I was like, I still feel the same. I feel great. And, I think my weight actually went down a bit. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just stick with this.
So I'll tell you something. In our practice, we work with a lot of people. We help them to find the right food that works for them, right? So we have come across a lot of people for them, vegetarian food causes trouble. And we have also come across a lot of food for them, animal products give them trouble. So I think the right solution changes from person to person. There's not like one size fits all at all. So ironically, a lot of people who have health problem with animal food also have been eating a lot of animal food. There is a theory that you are likely to you may like the food that gives you trouble because these food items in their partially digested form can lock into the opioid receptors in the brain. So this is not for everybody. This is only for a small set of people. So they
Oh yeah, I've heard that about dairy. Like dairy is something that actually it upsets my stomach, but I love to eat it. It's like an addiction. I think this was fantastic to get to know you better and to have the viewers get to know you better and actually look into what you're doing, why you're doing it, and where you intend on that going, which is super longevity. So I think that actually I want to call up your place of business and talk to them as well. I think it's fantastic. And I love that you're actually helping people live longer by teaching them how to do it and how to stick with that for a long time. Thank you so much for doing that.
Hey, welcome.
It's fantastic.
You and I are going to take millions of crazy, lunatic, I don't know what is going to happen. All this chaos with us, nothing is more, nothing can be more interesting. We are going to take millions, if not billions of people along with us in the next 10, 15 years time. Let's hope.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think the whole world is opening up to this type of technology now. So I think they're definitely coming with us.
Thanks, Liz. You've been a wonderful host. You have always been a wonderful host. You've done a great thing. And I'm so happy that I got to talk about all of this stuff with you as a host. Thanks a lot.
You were a wonderful guest. I all I had to do was listen. It was like listening to a story. I feel like a little kid. I'm ready to be tucked in and have a good night's sleep now. I heard a wonderful story about somebody's wonderful life.
Okay.
And it's all positive. I didn't even have to get scared.
Thanks a lot, Liz. We'll catch up next week then. Thanks a lot, listeners, viewers. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.